Let's talk about our guest speaker today, Carl Gould. First of all, I got to say that I had the pleasure of sharing the speaking stage with Carl about a couple months ago in Boston. And very, very impressive guy, and that's why we invited you down. It was a pleasure to share the stage with you. Let me tell you a little bit about Carl. He's a leading authority on business and entrepreneurship. His company, the 7-Stage Advisors, helps organizations grow to the next level, and I guess until they reach utopia, hopefully. He personally, before the age of 40, had built 3 multi-million-dollar companies. His company, 7-Stage Advisors, has mentored the launch of over 5,000 different companies. He personally has advised over 100 of the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies. Companies including like Walgreens, Walmart. This one I really like, American Idol. I want to hear about that. USA Olympic Track, IBM, McGraw-Hill, and the U.S. Army. And he also created the farthest reaching business mentoring organization in the world, and his methods are now taught and practiced in over 35 different countries. He's trained, certified, or accredited over 7,000 business coaches and mentors since 2002. He's written multiple books on the subject of business strategy, leadership, and sustainable growth. And he's co-authored the book entitled Blueprint for Success with Stephen R. Covey and Ken Blanchard, two very, very famous. How many people have read Covey's book, 7 Habits? And Ken Blanchard has written numerous books, so it's a huge feather in his cap to work with those type of people. His best-selling book is The 7 Stages of Small Business Success. He's also a visiting lecturer at MIT, Rutgers Business School, and the Wits Business School in Johannesburg. I don't know if that comes with the wild animals, or I would love to go there. Yeah. Like I said, it totally was a pleasure sharing the stage with you a couple months ago. But let's talk about entrepreneurs. How many people as entrepreneurs, how many people have made a mistake as an entrepreneur? Every hand should be in this, should be up, okay? Talk about it if you can, Carl. What are the top mistakes that entrepreneurs make? And have you personally made any of those?
Sure, I've made, well, hopefully I can shorten some of the learning curve because I've made some of those mistakes myself. But early on in a business, and then it happens twice. Early on in a business, and again when your company has achieved the initial goals that it set out, we underestimate how much our clients like our intangibles of our business, and we don't give our clients the path to become our best clients. Okay, so when we first start out, we helped all these companies launch, and like, oh, I'm a launch business. I've got to lower my pricing to get my name out there, and we strongly recommend against that. We say, no, I'm available to the marketplace in a way I was never available before. That's another way of saying I'm a launch. And if you're bringing a certain expertise, what we suggest is, and we have something we call the obnoxious offer. We suggest that you have an obnoxiously priced offering, but it also has obnoxiously value-added services to your ideal client avatar. So,
is that a high obnoxious or is that a low obnoxious?
High obnoxious. High obnoxious. So think about it. If you're going to your favorite game, going to see your top performance or whatever, something you're a fan of, when you call up to buy a seat to that event, you don't call up and say, hey, I'm really excited about going here. Can I get the worst seat in the house? You don't do that. You call up and you ask for what? The best seat you can afford, or the best seat that's available. So in other words, you try to be the best customer you can be. You want to be the best customer you can be. And oftentimes what we see entrepreneurs make is they undervalue the intangibles. So I can go to an Orioles game and I can sit in the nosebleed seats, or I can sit front row. It's still the same game. The intangible is how close can I get, well,
now you can get the front row, I guarantee you.
How close do I want to be right now? I get that, all right? But you're, right? So a big mistake is you undervalue your intangibles. And if the quick formula to see how much your clients value your intangibles, I'll give you a question. The response is a number. If you were to go to your clientele right now, whoever pays you for whatever reason, and increase your pricing by 1%, what percentage of your clients would leave you? They'd abandon you. They'd say, sorry, at that price you were fine, 1% more, I'm out of here. What percentage would leave you? Pretty much none, right? Okay, 3%. None. 5 is usually when, 5%. Okay, so the most common answer is 10%. So if you said any price increase where your clientele would not leave you, what that means is that they love you for something other than the utility of your product or your service. And so if you have not raised your prices to the maximum where you think people would start to complain, then you're not creating a path for your clientele to be your best clientele. You haven't met a person that has bought a Rolex or a Tesla or a luxury item and then complained about the price. They brag about the price. And then it happens again when your business plateaus. One of the reasons why it plateaus is you have to look at your pricing strategy, because that's the way you communicate with your clientele the most. The most intimate relationship you have with your clientele is through your pricing strategy, because it allows them the pathway to be your best middle or lower value clients. So that's where we look right away at any business we're looking at.
What's another top mistake?
Another top mistake is being too much of a control freak. So in the beginning of a business, especially, the business needs to attach its personality to the owner. But then at some point, your strength, when overdone, becomes a weakness. I remember in the 70s, Lee Iacocca turned around Chrysler, and then they left him in charge, and then he brought it right back down again so he could turn it around again, because he was a turnaround guy. And then they finally said, "Oh, Lee, we got to get you out of here. We can't take this roller coaster. This is ridiculous." And so and this kind of ties into one of the comments you were talking about earlier is CEOs, especially once they hit the first level of goals that they set out for the business, they start asking themselves the question, now what? And that's the worst question you cannot have that's the worst question to not have an answer for. Because if you outperform your vision of yourself or your business, you will sabotage your way back into your definition of yourself or your business. So the best way to hit a goal is to never hit a goal. Okay? What I mean by that is, if anyone ever run long distance, right? What do they tell you to do? Pick something in the distance and stare at it, and it'll draw you closer. But they don't say run into it. They don't say, pick that wall and then run smack into it. No, as you get close, you pick the next wall. So you never actually attain the goal in front of you. As you near it, you always set the next goal, so you blow past the initial one. Never achieve a goal. That's the best way to make sure that you maintain your momentum and stay away from mistakes, because from the neck up, you are your worst enemy. You're your greatest asset in the beginning, but you are your worst enemy later on.
And the key thing there is a great point, is that you learn from your mistakes. You might make a mistake. Everybody's going to make a mistake.
Of course.
You don't want to make that same mistake again.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the competition.
Sure.
How would you incorporate, say, the top 5 complaints about the competition? How would you take that to your advantage and really incorporate that into your plan, the plan of attack, your business plan?
Yeah, this is the first lesson I learned when I started my landscaping company back in the 80s. I'm not a big fan of the idea of competition. I understand there's other people in your niche that raises awareness for your niche, but if you have clearly identified your ideal client and you've gotten obnoxious with them, meaning you found out what the highest value-added services are, we suggest that you take the top 5 complaints about your industry, roll it into your business plan, and then guarantee to your prospects and your clients that if they become your client, this will never happen to them. So a good, easy example everybody's heard of is Netflix. In the beginning, Netflix started out, and it was a disgruntled customer that didn't like late fees, right? And so they took the top 5 complaints of what it meant to go to a video rental store. Anyone, but certainly Blockbuster was the top at the time. Right. And so what do you think the top 5 complaints were of going to a video rental store back in the day. Late fees was 1. Run out of titles was 2. You had to go there and go back. How would you like to have this business where the top 2 complaints were, I had to come see you and then I had to leave? Those are the top 5, 2 of the top 5. And then the last one was penalties and, remember those days of please be kind, rewind? Or they hit you for 50 cents? Well, some guy at his house was upset about that, and so he didn't like late fees, and so he said, we understand, we hear you. Those are the top 5 complaints. We promise you that if you become our customer, that will never happen to you or we'll give you your money back. You want to keep going to a video rental store, knock yourself out. There's one on every corner. And so they said, all we ask is that you put your credit card on file and that you walk back and forth to your mailbox. All right? So what happened to Blockbuster? They're gone. Now think about it. One guy in his house versus Blockbuster. And if any company could have taken on Netflix in the beginning, who could it have been? Blockbuster. That not even the top company in the industry could stop the inertia of that, because your clientele, unless you have a bucket list item business, and I had the pleasure of having that, I'll explain that in a second. Unless you have a bucket list item business, then your clientele go to the negatives of working with you, not the positives. And when the world flipped upside down in 2009, your customers and your employees stopped trusting your word. You told them they'd have a job, you can't keep that promise anymore. You told all the customers that if you buy that little card and you punch it 9 times, 10th time you'll get a free pizza. Well, you shut your doors down when some people still had that card. And so you broke the promise. Now I bet you, if I went to all of your websites, I would see your unique selling proposition, your features, advantages, benefits, and it'd probably be all positive, right? It's been a while since I've been to your LinkedIn profile and you told me all the mistakes you've made, all the screw-ups. Like, oh yeah, that one was short-lived because, man, I was terrible. It was great. Yeah, cool. I'd love to tell you that story. Probably not, right? So the point is that all of your websites are just, and the internet right now is just noise. And everybody is screaming the same thing. And most people don't trust your word. So what they are, though, is skeptical. Very skeptical right now. So what I'd recommend you do is take a page out, or start a new page on your website. Take the top 5 complaints. Call that page Problems We Solve. Just Problems We Solve. Take the top 5 complaints and write a paragraph about how you solve them. Because when people search on the internet, they don't say, if they have a abdominal pain, they don't say, I have an upper contusion of the lower thoracic mid-torso. They don't diagnose themselves. They just say, my stomach hurts. Problems we solve. If your stomach hurts, here's how we solve that problem, right? And what people want right now from you is they want you to solve their problems. And they don't believe all the other yada yada that's on your website. You'll have to prove that to them later. But you need to solve their problem. And I promise you, they're thinking about the negatives of working with you, not the positives. And that's okay if you at least understand where the buyer's at. Just real quickly, when I had my construction company, I had a log home dealership. So I was building, if you're so inclined for that lifestyle, that's a dream purchase. People saved up for years and years and years. They'd come to me with a file that would be like, can you build log homes? It would say log homes, log homes, log homes. And I would say, no. I'd say, yeah, I think I know the guy. And they would say, can you build this? This is our fireplace, and this is our countertop, and this is our house, the whole bit. And I'd say, yeah, absolutely. I was an order taker. And then they would brag about how much they spent on their dream home. Same family, I build their primary home. They would say, well, we got a budget. I'm like, well, you're going to go a little over. Like, nah, we're not. I said, well, then you won't have tile. So what? But not in the dream home, right? So unless you have a bucket list, if you have a bucket list item business, people think of the positives. If you do not, which I suspect most of you don't, I know I don't anymore, once I sold that business, that means people would rather they not have to hire you to get through their life. Fair enough? If you fall in that bucket, I know I do, then that means you're dealing with complaints. And everybody knows the complaints. But not everybody has the guts to promise their clientele that it's not going to happen to them. If you have the guts to do it, you eliminate your competitor immediately. Because if they're taking five quotes and yours is the one that addresses all their complaints, they're not talking to anyone else. to talking to you. So what I learned is the first week I had my landscaping company, I found out that if I handle the complaints, there's a lot of margin and there's a lot of upside and there's a lot of premium pricing. You can get incredibly obnoxious when you're handling somebody's complaints.
You're really talking about the concept of differentiation here right now.
Yeah.
And it's really a key point. How else can you differentiate yourself? How else can you get ahead of the competition and really isolate the competition, what you're talking about? Because in that scenario, they're not looking at anybody else.
Right.
You're answering those needs.
Yeah, so we have a internal phrase we say that we like to invade the privacy of our clients. And I'd suggest the same thing for you, meaning you can't communicate enough to your core clientele, your ideal client avatar, the person who is most likely and the best beneficiary of your services, and the person that would be willing to pay a premium and then brag about it. That's your ideal client, okay? So we say invade their privacy. I don't mean illegally, although it's probably happening already without you even knowing it. You have a Facebook page, you're probably already doing it. Or they're doing it to you. But the point is that if they are your ideal client right now, they are hungry for your expertise. You know, my son's a freshman in college right now. A year ago, I would consume anything about how to get your kid in college, how to choose a college, what's the right way. You know, I couldn't consume enough of that. Well, my son's now, my second one's in college, and I've got a few more years till my daughter's ready. So I'm not your ideal client right now. I will be in a few years, but I couldn't consume enough of it. And it actually got frustrating when I wanted more information and the clients were like, well, you know, we didn't want to bother you and I don't want to email you too much and I don't want to send you too much information. I'm like, really? Like, are you good at what you do or not? Can you help me or not? And if you can help me, I can't get enough of you. So that's one of the other ways that you separate is most people don't partner with their clients. They're afraid to ask. You know, like, oh well, if I ask them what you know what their experience is, they might tell me what's wrong, or I might lose them. You might, but you'll also learn. And if they at least feel heard, that's one of the ways that you can stay. You know, you can stay in touch with them because without getting too deep into it, we are in an economic cycle that's going to go for about 5 more years. And it's a 500-year trend of this cycle that happens every 80 years. And the number one strategy in this economic cycle is the creation of clubs and memberships. Okay, for 500 years, it's been the number one the e-commerce strategy. And that means you communicate on a regular basis, you deepen the relationship. You should do that anyway, but right now, that is the way to continue to separate yourself from the competitors.
Well, I mean, that's a great point. You know, we all have the ups and downs, you know, of business. And, you know, some people call it the winter.
Yeah, exactly.
We just got out of winter. It was pretty rough. How do you survive? What's your recommendation? What should we be doing in terms of hunkering down and be able to survive those down periods?
Yeah, I mean, the down periods are great. You know, I live in Jersey. We had Superstorm Sandy. You know, a lot of things fell over during that time. But the strong stuff was still on the trees when they were done. You know, the stuff that's on the ground are all the weak branches. And I feel for people who don't make it through tougher times. But I also have learned over the years that they made their own bed. You know, or they didn't do the things that would have helped them. Winter, I think, is a great time because it's a time to rejuvenate, kind of recalibrate, and it does weed out those that haven't fully committed to their clientele or to serving their community. And that's I have all the compassion in the world for them, and the reality is they haven't fully committed. You know, I'm not the most qualified guy in the room, and I you know, in your industry, maybe you're the top dog and maybe you're not. But I bet you're the most committed. And, you know, I learned very early on when I had my landscaping company, the number one piece of feedback I got as the reason why I won the contract was because I showed up. I was the one that was there. As a matter of fact, that became my first promise. I wrote, because I heard the complaint so much, that you contractors never call back. What's wrong with you people? That's what someone said to me, you people, like they're all me, you know, and my cousins.
You're at fault.
Yeah, come on, what's wrong with you people? All right, and so I made the first promise on all of my advertising, all phone calls returned. That's it. I didn't even list my services. I just wrote down that I'd call you back. And I got overrun with leads. And that landscaping business doubled every year in a recession until I sold it to my top competitor 6 years later. Right? And then when you called my answering machine, it would say, if you leave a voicemail, everybody gets an appointment, everybody gets a proposal. So those were the top 3 I was able to get out right away. And so, that's the, during winter, you have to fully commit because your clientele are fully committed to their problem, whatever that is. If you prove you're fully committed, meaning it will hurt you as much as it will hurt them if you don't solve their problem, those are the winter companies that survive and do well. One of the formulas we give people during this time, if you're considering buying an asset, we suggest the formula of 60% ARV, 60% after repair value. Meaning anything you're going to buy or hire, you're going to buy a building, you're going to buy equipment, offer 60% of the asking price, and then deduct whatever maintenance or repairs that have to be done to make it functional. I don't mean make it cosmetically nice, but just make it functional. And find out where the distressed assets are, and there's a ton out there. You would say, oh my God, no way, absolutely not. I just bought the building I'm working at, closed it in December, 60% ARV.
Wow.
The real estate agent told me, Carl, he rejected an offer for whatever. I said, well, I don't care, that wasn't my offer. This is my offer. And I don't know why, or I don't know what your story is, but I know by law you have to submit my offer in writing. So either you're gonna do it or I'm gonna do it. And it took the guy the seller one day to accept my offer. No negotiation. So the asset might not be distressed, but the partnership might be. You never know. During this time, don't pay 100%. Start at 60%. But to answer your question, here's what I didn't say. I didn't say you walk into the Apple store and say, ha, I was just at the seminar. I'll handle this. I'd like that iPhone X, but I'm not going to pay $1,200. 60% is about $720. I'll buy it for that. Yeah? What would they say if you went into Apple and started negotiating prices on the phone? Right. Apple doesn't need to negotiate because they understand winter. And they took a deep dive with their clientele. So they could charge whatever they want. They know that they could charge just about whatever they want for the phone, and you will throw out your perfectly functioning phone in order to get your hands on that new one. That's how good they are with their clientele. Rolex, and they don't have to be luxury brands, but Rolex, Walmart, I mean, go down the list. And, they do fine during the recession because, ironically, during recessionary times, your clientele are willing to pay more for your products and services if they believe you're an expert. But you have to take the deep dive and fully commit to being the expert.
And it's so important. That point is so well taken that you made, Carl, in terms of don't forget about the attention to detail and the little things. Really, it's a stupid little thing when you think about it. Returning a phone call. How many times, have you called a contractor, which is a perfect example, anybody doing any work in there, hey, ask Steve about the work he's being done in his house. I mean, it's crazy. They not only don't return calls, they don't show up.
Right.
I mean, look at the ad that they have now, I guess it's for Horizon Plumbing and Heating. If we don't show up on time, there's no charge. They're trying to differentiate themselves.
They just bought one of our clients in a roll-up up in New Jersey.
Yeah. People are looking for getting things. People don't want to wait. Remember the old days? Well, we'll be there between 9 and 12 or 9 and 1 and maybe in the afternoon. And then you stay home the whole day and nobody shows up. What's the repercussions?
Right.
Come back tomorrow.
So over-promise and over-deliver because you can, but charge for it.
Let's talk about pricing again.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most important ingredient? You talked about the obnoxious pricing component. What's the most important ingredient as you see it in the pricing strategy?
So in your pricing strategy, you need to be dynamic, meaning buyers want what they don't feel they have, right? And in the last economic cycle, which ended in 2005, from 85 to 2005, we were in an economic cycle where things were moving so fast, people felt stressed for time. So anything you could do to save them time, they wanted, right? But today, we have smartphones. We can compress time all we want. You don't need to save your clients time. I'm not suggesting you slow them down on purpose, but you do not need to go out of your way to save them time. They can do that all on their own and they don't need your help. What they feel they lost in 2009 and what you can give them back is control. If you can give them control, they will spend more, right? And so you need to have dynamic pricing. So, so what we suggest that you do is that you have two distinct ways that you present yourself to your clientele. You give, based on the feedback and what you think your ideal client avatar would want, you give 3 levels of engagement. You bundle packages. Think bronze, silver, gold. Okay? Any company can do it. You can, say, oh, I'm a realtor. You can't do that. Yes, you can. Realtors charge 6%. We have a client that charges 10. Their gold package is 10%. And they get it all day long. It's the #1 package they sell, right? I get a commission. Oh, I'm regulated. You can do it in any business. And then you give a la carte. You take every service you have, and what you do is you make a list of the smallest possible thing you can sell to your customer. And so you have a buffet on one side, and you have your 3 packages on the other, and then you say, you choose. Pick as small as you want, go as fast as you want, add as much together as you want. And if you can give them control back, they will feel that you understand them better. And again, this is a communication back and forth between your clientele. I just bought a Jeep recently. It was the worst experience, the worst. And I go online and I look for the Jeep I wanted. I wanted a white Sahara Jeep. I was going to put this lift kit and some other stuff on it, but it had to be white, had to have the tan interior, had to be the manual. That's what I wanted. And I said, these are the deal breakers. So 2 dealerships say they have it. I call them up and I said, listen, I'm going to be your easiest sale in the world, but please don't make me drive all the way down to your dealership for you to tell me you don't have it. Oh, no, we definitely have it. He never looked to see if they had it. So he said he had it in inventory. So I get there, we walk out to the back, and I'm standing next to this beautiful blue Jeep. And he's like, yes, this is what you wanted. And I said, cool, you painting this thing? And he's like, no. He goes, oh, come on, who wants white anyway? I'm like, are you kidding me? I said, that was one of the deal breakers. So I leave. He doesn't have it. Second place I go to has everything, but it's an automatic. And I said, you heard the deal breaker part. So I just got frustrated with it, and I went online, Jeep.com, and I built it. And then I just wired $10,000 to the dealer. The CFO called me up and is like, hey, is Carl there? And they're like, yeah. I said, we just got $10,000 from you. Like, what was that for? And I said, well, I ordered the Jeep online. And the salesperson never told them. And I said, well, I ordered the Jeep. They're like, oh, do we have it? I said, no, but you will soon. I ordered it online, had it built. And so it was totally taken by surprise. But I had to go through them to get the darn car. So I said, listen, this was just miserable experience. But I put everything, but I probably put more stuff on it because I designed it. I'm like, oh, mud guards? Oh, the plug-in thing for the engine? That sounds cool. There wasn't a thing on the car you couldn't put on it. But, I'm like, wow, sounds neat. I'm only going to buy one of these. So I went for the whole thing. And they were like, wow, this is great. Took all sorts of pictures. And they're like, oh, could you give us a 5-star rating? I said, you don't want a survey from me. Just take the photos, use them. But if I'm honest, I'll give you a survey, but I'll be honest. And this was a miserable experience. I had no control. I didn't even try to negotiate the price, on this car. This was a dream purchase for me. And I didn't even try to negotiate it, but it was miserable. And so I wanted, so if you can give them control and allow them to, people love to consume. So if you let them do it, they will run with it. Our table was convinced we were going to be the chocolate cake free table up until everyone had it. Right.
Then they went back for seconds. That's
exactly.
when we knew we were in trouble.
Jack was like, no. Get that away from me. Yeah, 2 forks. Yeah, right. So.
Interestingly, we have a real estate expert in here. Person that's charging 10% when everybody else is charging 6 and 7%. What does that say about their expertise, and what are they doing to get that extra?
Well, what they did was survey their clients and say, what are all the things you need to make the transition? They sell traditional residential properties, and they also sell ranch properties, right? And so on a ranch property, there's mineral rights. So everybody that buys a ranch property at some point looks at what are the natural resources on my land. So they hired a geologist. And they said, well, you can do the 6% route, but our geologist they're an expert in mineral rights. We can make this cash flow 0 if you want, but we charge 10%. So they sell 10%, So if you bought, not that you had to bring them on your, if you want to charge 10%, you make everything one-stop shopping. You just say, no, I'll sell it. Here's what we get. We get 10%. You will not have to, we'll get your title agent, we'll get your attorney, we'll get the contractor to fix up what you need, we'll project manage the whole thing. This will truly be a turnkey experience. Put that up, make that your obnoxious offer. Just ask for 10%. Don't keep your 6% offer. You watch how many people go for the 10%. You'd be surprised. Because for a couple $1,000s more, I can have a totally stress-free, literally an experience where I get handed a set of keys. I walk right into a stage. We'll even move your stuff in for you. I'll manage the entire thing. A to B. You watch how many people take you up on that 10%. I would be shocked if nobody takes you up on it.
Yeah, but on $1 million house, that's an extra, 40 grand.
And for someone spending $1 million, you think they would? When my last business that I sold was I had a construction company and real estate development. I was in the furniture business as much as I was in the construction business. So we used to stage the house for sale. And I would say to the company, I'm like, well, how much does this cost? And they were like, well, 10 grand. I'd say, cool, you could buy everything in this house for $40,000 or $40 on your mortgage. And it would be remarkable. They'd walk in and they'd be like, oh, honey, our couch looks horrible. Let's put that one in the basement. Why don't we keep this one? Because I'd have a professional interior designer come in, and then I'd put $10,000 worth of stuff in there and say it's $40 on your mortgage. I was selling as much furniture as I was houses.
Interesting.
I would have taken it all. If you don't want it, it's fine. I'll take it all out. We're just staging the house. But we had a professional designer come in, and they designed these few rooms. And, oh, by the way, if you want their design services, you can always hire them for the rest of the house. But we took the liberty of working on the communal rooms, the public rooms.
Great points. If you have that level of expertise, charge for it. Questions from the audience, anybody? Antonio, you're going to start charging 10%?
We already do in some instances.
There we go. And you have no problem getting it.
A little bit higher price point. Yeah.
But the key is to offer it. The key is to find out what so here's the deal. Your clients don't have to buy your obnoxious offer, but you have to offer it to be known as an expert. So think about this. When you bought your last car, you walked into a showroom. What car did they have in the middle of the showroom, on a carpet, behind ropes with lights on it? Right. Did you buy that car?
Yes.
In some cases you did. Right? We do work with auto dealers. We say, well, how many of those do you sell? They said, you know what? It's actually a pain in the ass when we sell it. Because we only sell like 3 a year. We got to pump the tires back up. The battery's dead. We prefer no one actually buy the car because it's a hassle for us to replace it. But what you walk in and you fall in love, you say, wow, if you can build that car, then that means you can probably build my minivan, right? So you have the gold package, remember, gold, silver, bronze, then you have your menu. And auto dealers are really good at that. They put the most expensive car in the middle of the showroom, then they have everything out in the lot. That's their menu. So they sell you on the brand with the car in the middle, and then they have something for every budget and every appetite on the menu. So people don't have to buy your obnoxious offer, but you need to offer it. So I would definitely have it on there.
Are you familiar with the Blue Ocean strategy?
I am.
So how does that work in, because it kind of sounds like you're talking about a similar thing where you're trying to not just distinguish yourself from the competition, but not even compete with the competition, right?
Flat out compete, don't compete with
Can
them.
you rephrase it for the
Sure.
video?
Sure. So the question was, am I familiar with the Blue Ocean strategy and how does what we talk about relate? So Blue Ocean strategy talks a lot about creating what doesn't exist. Okay? So let's call this a turquoise ocean strategy for today. Because I'm not even saying that you have to create something that doesn't exist. Everybody in your niche knows what the problems are. It's just your competitors don't have the guts to do it. So you can have a blue ocean strategy that someone's like, wow, that's a really good idea. Let me copy you. The turquoise strategy is even better because everyone knows the problem. They just don't have the guts to do it. Right? So as I'm a business advisor, I have no control over your business. I don't make any decisions, but we offer a 5-to-1 guarantee, which means if you're not making or saving 5 times the amount of our fee, the whole thing's free, even though I can make no decisions on your behalf. Right? So how many business advisors do you think could also make the same guarantee? All of them. How many do you think do? None of them. So if you're looking at so like I said, I'm not the most qualified guy in the room all the time, all right? But if you're looking at 4 different proposals and one's the guarantee and 3 are like, well, if you don't take action, you're not going to get results, who am I competing with? Right? So there's a good example right now in the field, a blue ocean, is Tesla, right? Is a Tesla expensive?
Yes, no. The new one's not.
Compared to what? Right now, Tesla, they're what is it, the Model, not the $35,000 one, but the ones they have on the market, they don't have a competitor. There's the BMW i8, but that's a sports car. There's no other car company building that class of car. So right now, we don't know if they're expensive. When the next company comes in and builds an identical car and they charge $400,000, we're going to say, wow, Tesla did a good job.
Hell of a job.
Or if they come back and they do it for $50, we're going to say Tesla's been screwing us. But right now, we don't know. And that's a great place to be because there's no comparison. If there's no comparison, nobody can say if you're expensive or not. They can just say, do I want it? And that's where you go. So with the turquoise strategy or the blue ocean, the turquoise ocean strategy or the blue ocean strategy, either way, you don't have a competitor. I like the turquoise one because everybody knows it, but they're afraid to do it. And that doesn't change because that part doesn't change. You know, now that Tesla's blazed the path and they say, here's how you build a battery-operated car. Now people are sprinting to copy them, and soon they'll be knockoffs, right? And you're starting to hear about people not totally happy with Tesla on certain things because battery-operated cars are getting more and more prevalent. The competition's catching up. But a guarantee, an obnoxious offer, everybody knows how to do it, but not everybody's even willing to take the chance. And if you are, that's where you win.
Vasilios.
So the presentation was going pretty good until you got to commissions. Then it became great.
Yeah.
Then you were telling us about putting all these real estate guys and all the rest even less. So I want you to tell me, how do you handle those financial advisors who want 2%, complete control, and give me your money and invest it? Sorry.
Sure.
How do you do that?
So I would, to the extent that it's legal and you're allowed to do it, if I'm a financial advisor, you know, right now most financial advisors have conflicting goals with their clients. Client wants to get the maximum amount for the least amount they pay. You want to get the maximum amount for the minimum amount of effort, right? So you need to align your goals. How do you get your client to want to pay you more? And so we do it in our firm. I would suggest any financial advisor does the same. Work on a success fee. As long as you're outperforming the market, you participate in the transactions. You participate in the money when it moves.
Or over-deliver.
Pardon me?
Or over-deliver.
Or over-deliver. So if the whole world flips upside down and the market goes down 30%, but you only went down 10% because you outperformed the market, you deserve something for that. I protected you. I insulated you from 20% downside. And conversely, though, if I can make your portfolio go up and up and up and up, I should participate that as well. And now we have aligned ideologies. I want to pay you more because it's not coming out of my pocket. You're just getting a piece of what you create that doesn't exist right now. So I like the idea of success fees. You can all do it. I know it's scary, but you can all do it, and your clients would want it too. Because your clients would want to know that if I don't perform, that means you don't perform. And you know what? We're now in this together. And if you're as good as you say you are, and if your business is good and their research is as good, you know, all the blah, blah, blah on your website, if all that's actually true, a success fee should be really pretty easy because you're probably doing it already. So why not just guarantee it? Why not just structure your payment schedule that way? A lot of people don't. Anyone who's not willing to give it to you, I would question that how much they really believe in their system. That's how I would do it.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Carl, this approach that you're talking about, it focuses a lot on your internal capabilities as well as the competitors. When you start to look at the clients that you currently have or the ones that you want to pursue, it works definitely in a private sector, but what about clients that have restricted budgets that aren't able to work outside of their procurement process? And like the idea of a kickback or guaranteeing something for non-performance is very different to them. So can you talk a little bit about how you pursue a particular type of client and how do you get your traditional client to switch over to this model and concept?
Sure. So are you talking in bid situations, low bid situations mostly?
Not necessarily where they have to choose the lowest bidder, but they still have to qualify this through their normal process or justify why they're not necessarily choosing the low bid
Great. Okay. So
or the service industry.
right. So how do you win that bid even if there's some discretion? So one of the top reasons why an employee of an organization chooses a supplier is to get promoted. One of the top reasons why. They don't want, the old expression, nobody ever got fired by hiring IBM, right? Because, well, if IBM couldn't fix it, then not my fault. I hired the best. So I would go back to who is the person who's your internal advocate and what would make them look like a rock star, okay? And so a lot of the same principles apply. Number one of the things we do anytime we submit a request for proposal or request for information is we always put a supplement as to what problem do we think you're trying to solve with your RFP and how do you actually solve it. Because usually the RFP doesn't actually solve the problem of the person who wrote it. If you're the expert, that means you're probably smarter or more qualified than the person that wrote the RFP in the first place. So therefore, you probably see the gaps in the RFP. Fair? So you write a supplement that just says, hey, I think you're trying to solve this problem. And if that's the case, here are some things to think about. I submitted the proposal as you asked, the RFP as you asked. And if you want to talk, here it is, or at least whoever you award the bid to, make sure that they cover these things. Okay? All the other stuff still applies. You can, we guarantee, we have a client in San Francisco that is a furniture supplier. And they work through dealers and they work through contractors. So they put a guarantee, even though they're not the ones always doing the installation, that the installation will have no change orders associated with and everything will be replaced within a certain period of time. They went to their 30 dealers, all 30 wanted in. And they were afraid of oh my God, so they only allowed 6 in the beginning. They had to actually do a hierarchy of their top dealers and say, we're going to let you 6 in, we'll beta test it, and then we'll open it up sequentially to see how it goes. So all of the same rules apply. We just took on a CRM in our business. And I said to my marketing director, I said, go choose a CRM. So she goes out, she does all the research, she comes back and she says, Zoho. I said, okay, Zoho. Why Zoho? And I'm looking and it's not the cheapest of them all. It was actually one of the more expensive ones. And I said, so why Zoho? And she says, well, they have good customer service and every time I call them, they have a good answer. And she made the case to me why the more expensive one was the one we go for. So they did a great job of understanding that Melissa was really the client and I was just the customer. I was just paying, but they were going to deal with her and they made her happy. So they took care of her objections. And so she came back and she fought for the more expensive option. So we have to find out who is the persuader or the influencer within, who's your internal advocate, what would be a win for them. So even if so I would include a couple of things. One would be the quickest and responsive access to expertise, so they can solve any problem. Any guarantee, number 2, and then any ongoing support that they can expect over time. Okay, because then, and if you can, lay out the long-term ROI. I think you were saying it before. There's an ROI on everything. Just depends on how long you want to wait for it. But I would put the long-term ROI in there because they're going to say, one of the arguments they're going to make is, well, why are we charging more? Well, because we're going to get our money back. It's 15% more, but in year 9, it's free because we're going to save this much money. So you have to make an internal advocate out of the person who's presenting on your behalf.
Okay. Final question. Steve.
Just out of curiosity, when hiring a business advisor, what are some key qualifying questions we should be asking other than I can guarantee 5 times my fee?
Right.
Actually, 3 questions. So what questions would we be asking? When they come out with their fee, how do we know that that's fair? And then when do we fire them?
All good questions.
All right. You had 1. What are you doing with 3?
So when I started coaching in 1990, and it was enough to say you were a coach, like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Then you had to say you were a business or a life coach. right? Then it was business executive results life coach. Then it was, so now the industry's really niched out, which is great. You know, that it's a mature industry. And so saying you're a coach now is not enough. What we're finding more and more is people want a coach who's a good motivator, good communicator, but also has experienced what you're about to go through. So if you're looking for an advisor, have they done it? All right. Now, a good coach doesn't have to have done it. Like, I don't have to be the world's best sprinter to coach the world's best sprinter, but I had to have sprinted before. Okay. And so I would, so you're looking for somebody who has experience, that they don't have to be an industry expert. You know, the top, the top 80% of all the game-changing innovations of the 20th century came from the front lines of another industry. So they had to have been there. Right? So have they done it? Have they built it? Have they done something that you're trying to attempt to do so they can pass along their experience? Do they have the credentials? Do they get behind it? Would they work on a success fee? Not that it's even appropriate, but would they work on it? And what is the predetermined time that we're going to work together? And what is the predetermined things we're going to work on? So when you're working with a coach, regardless of the reason why you're doing it or whatever you get involved in, you are entering a period called intentional imbalance. You're going to spend more time on something to overcompensate or fix that you had before. So you're intentionally going to be imbalanced. For intentional imbalance to work, you need a start date and a finish date. At the end of the finish date, you could say, all right, let's enter the next phase, and we can keep working together. But there should be a start date and a finish date. So it should come to it should have a fixed conclusion, and then you decide to go to the next phase or not. Maybe that coach is still appropriate for you. Maybe that coach is no longer appropriate for you, and you're ready for the next level. But you and if you like your coach, that's not always the best sign that they're the best coach for you. If they irritate you in some way, if they get on you a little bit, they're probably the right person for you, because they're introducing you to the part of you that needs a kick in the you-know-where, right? And so you want that person to be friendly, but not necessarily your friend, and someone who's not afraid to challenge you. We say a good coach will ask the right question at the right time. A master coach will ask any question at any time to any person, regardless of how long they know each other.
Carl, thank you, sir. Great information. You want to say anything about the instrument that's on the table?
Oh, sure. I think I have a copy here. So thank you for that. So I have a feedback form that you have on your table. If you'd like to give me some feedback on the presentation, by all means do that. That would be appreciated. We have some programming, which is number 2, if that resonates with you. But number 3 is our gift to you. We do a consultation we call the business analysis. It's a 2-hour session. We take you through a 4-page process, and at the end of that, we give you 5 growth strategies for your business. We typically charge $1,500 for it, but anyone who attends a presentation, we offer it at no cost. So if you'd like to take us up on it, just fill out number 3. Just let me know how to contact you, and I'll take that with me today and make sure that you get the follow-up.
Anything you want to say about your books or anything?
Oh, I was worried because I bought the books, and Doug said, you got to sell your books. And I'm like, yeah, but can this group afford it? And after hearing all your introductions, I know you can. So this is great. So I bought 3 of my most recent books. One is called Fix It in 5, where I have a radio show where we have a segment where we fix any problem in your business in 5 minutes or less. So that's a book on 12 different categories of problems, and my co-host, Carl Gibbons, our solution to that. The 7 Stages of Small Business Success, which came out in 2010, that lays out the growth cycle. And I wrote a book, bestseller in 2016, called Biz Dev Done Right, which is all about sales results and sales management. The books are normally in the store a lot more, but $20 each if you want a book, $30 for all 3.
Thank you, Carl. Great job.
You're welcome.